other thing I want to say, well, I also don't think this is our 1930s moment. I don't think the Russian Revolution's happening next week either.
No comment.
Okay, because well, maybe you had it in New York a few months ago.
People's Republic of New York, yeah.
But we can get into a really interesting conversation here about the long erosion of power of Congress. What we're looking at there, we still have a functioning elected body.
Functioning is being generous, but sure, I point
Functioning is
taken.
generous, but
Yeah.
functioning when you compare it to the Reichstag, which was, again, and part of this is built in our systems. This is what is interesting, right? We feel like we're in constant campaign mode because we've got elections every 2 years. Well, Reichstags, these guys, they're having an election every couple of months. And that type of election fatigue favors fringe movements. If you go back to Russia and you talk about the Duma, well, the Duma served the Tsar, and every time they do something that the Tsar decides he's not crazy about, he just dissolves the Duma and they elect a new Duma. So aside some of our concerns about the lack of power coming out of the legislative branch, and we definitely have to address that, we still have a working a working legislative branch that um, that that provides, I think, along with I think, strongly working judicial branch that puts us in a place that's very different than what you saw in 1930s in Germany.
Let me draw some comparisons first to Russia, and then I'm going to bounce to 1920s Italy. I say that because I'll digress, and I want somebody to hold me accountable. I think what we were talking, we kind of danced around the subject here, but with the SRs and the people, what was it? The People's Will was the terrorist
People's will.
organization.
It was some elites, but one of the things that made it, one of the similarities that you point out, I think even more than that they were elites, they weren't stopped by the elites. The elites did nothing to say this violence is wrong, which made the violence okay. And then the second part of that, the people's will thing that's really interesting is and the Russian Revolution that makes it more like here, it's in the cities. You didn't have for all the talk, right, of, the Bolsheviks and the revolution of the peasants, the Russian Revolution happened in St. Petersburg, somewhat in Moscow. It was a student class that worked to provoke
Yeah.
the factory working class.
And which you haven't
In
seen here. They're diametrically opposed in
They're
this country.
diametrically opposed here.
Yeah.
We don't
And
see that
and
overlap here.
the student class with elite support is where I wanted to go in political violence. Look at Mangione, right? Mangione could have been a Russian revolutionary in the 1880s, blowing up Tsar Alexander with a bomb. It's the same kind of thing. The elites may not be throwing the bombs themselves, but some members of the establishment were coming out and supporting them. The normalization of political violence on both sides, I think to your point, we're getting a little pre-Russian revolution.
Yeah,